Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. I never saw Bitcoin. And now I'm going, holy moly, what's going to happen next?
Fiat currency itself, it is actually born by borrowing. So systemically, the supply of dollars can never be sufficient to satisfy the debts that it creates. So it's incentivizing the creation of debt from the outset.
And the way the money, and being a CPA, the reason that works is the way to get the money back is via taxation.
Yeah, and seigniorage. Frankly, they're buying government treasuries, right? The Fed's buying government treasuries, so they're paying interest. There's never, the point of the story is there's never enough dollars in the system to satisfy the debt it creates. It's a self-annihilating system.
Well, it's also Triffin's dilemma, because you could never ever fix it. You would always go farther and further and further into debt.
Right. So the inflation that accelerates and gets worse over time. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, as you might say. And there's very simple consequences on market actors are when money holds value, people save. When money loses value, people go into debt, or if you're a corporation, you buy back your shares, or you engage in other risky activities to try and outperform inflation. So it creates this artificial hurdle rate for all market actors. And that's what we're steeped in today. We are far down that road, and that's what I'd like to talk about is, Bitcoin and the next 10 years of money. Today is we've been conditioned to think inflation is not that big of a deal. And I think when you really consider economics from first principles, you'll come to see inflation as it's a coercive, thieving, and a moral force. And it's very simply just the stealing of wealth by those who can print money from those who cannot print money. And as the old saying goes, inflation is the surest way to fertilize the rich man's field with the sweat of the poor man's brow.
Amen. The reasons I created the Rich Dad Company was because of Gresham's Law. The bad money chases out good money, or good money goes into hiding. I never saw Bitcoin. And now I'm going, holy moly, what's going to happen next?
And this law that we mentioned, this law of accelerating issuance and depreciation related to currency, this is an ancient law. I mean, it's been written about for hundreds and hundreds of years. This is not a joke. This is not something I made up. This is something you can find everywhere, that this pattern repeats. Once countries start down this path, it's very bad, and it's inescapable. You can't turn back. So going into 2031, which, as we left off earlier, I would expect the U.S. money supply to expand from 20 trillion-ish today to about 500 trillion in the next 10 years. I expect global M2 to expand roughly 12x, from around 100 trillion to about 1,250 trillion, 1.25 quadrillion. And the difference there is that a lot of the weaker international currencies will have collapsed into the dollar. So the dollar will actually have grown in purchasing power overall. And I think by this time, so going into 2031, let's say, that Bitcoin will have continued its growth trajectory. It will have played out another one of these price cycles. Possibly its price cycle will have broken and it just gone into a long, slow grind upwards as people realize it's a game of accumulation. And I think Bitcoin by this time will have reached about 20% of global purchasing power. So this would imply Bitcoin's market cap in 2031 dollars to be about $250 trillion. So that's about 1/5 of global M2 stored in Bitcoin. Now, accounting for inflation, that means Bitcoin's market cap in today's dollars would be about 20 trillion. So in 2031 dollars, this is a very bright line to distinguish, I think Bitcoin by the year 2031 will be north of $12.5 million per Bitcoin.
Jesus.
But
$12.5 million per coin?
$12.5 million, but adjusting for inflation, it will only feel like north of $1 million per Bitcoin in 2021 dollars, because the dollar will have lost so much of its value by then. $12.5 million will spend like $1 million. So that's my prediction for by 2031. And then that's going to clearly have some big impact on fiat currencies, including the dollar.
Well, again, that goes back to Gresham's law, is that the more fake money what you're talking about is when they increase M2 and M3 and all of those stuff they taught me in economics, which I forgot. It's just printing more money. That's all they're doing. And so that's what gives Bitcoin and the blockchain technology so much more credibility than the central bank money, fake money, I call it.
That's right. It's
so.
As I've said in a past episode with you, actually, it's a pyramid scheme.
Oh God, yes.
When we say printing money, you're not actually creating any new wealth or value.
No.
You're just shifting the claims on existing capital. And you're stealing from those that are dependent on the dollar to hold its value, which are the poor, those living on fixed income, retirees, pensioners. You're stealing from the most economically vulnerable,
right,
and giving to those with access to the freshly printed money.
Right. And look, this is why my wife and I started the Rich Dad Companies. We need financial education. Just as simple as Gresham's law, fake money drives out good money. You have bad money. And our Federal Reserve Bank, the smartest guys on earth, don't fight the Fed. They're printing trillions. And we have millions of Americans and people all over the world waiting for the stimulus check. We're going to crush them. From your financial background, in my opinion, every time we print money, we just create more poor people. That's what we're doing. What do you have to say about that? We're just creating poor people.
You're 100% correct. And the fact that Jerome Powell can go on national television and say that there's no causation between monetary policy and wealth disparity is a testament to the times we're living in. We are drowning in deception in this world. It just, the whole thing's built on lies. And I would argue, and I think many Bitcoiners would argue, it starts and ends with the money. We have a lie built into our money, right? The paper was once redeemable for gold. That became a lie.
Because we violated Gresham's law. We produced bad money.
Right.
Throughout history, the Romans did it, Germans did it, Zimbabwe did it, Venezuela's doing it, everybody's doing it. And now we have Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum. Couldn't somebody just create their own coins? Aren't they going to?
And they do. There's thousands of them out there. Because if you're trying to compete with Bitcoin directly as money, and it has perfected those 5 properties of money, there's essentially no design space left to introduce a feature that could disrupt Bitcoin. And if there was, so first of all...
Wow. You're saying that old Satoshi, or whoever he was, locked it up tight?
Well, once you digitize money's an informational instrument. It gains all of these advantages, and the services it offers become, as good as we can create with the current.
Are you saying it automatically gets stronger?
Well, here's the thing. Assuming, even if these guys are the next Einstein and they've figured out something else that money needs that none of us knew it needed, should they go into the market, they sell this coin, it starts to have some success. Bitcoin is still adaptive. It's open source technology. So if there's a feature they've developed that makes money better, which we don't know of one, again, Bitcoin can absorb that feature set. It's open source technology. It resists harmful changes, but it can absorb useful changes, let's say. So this further insulates it.
So it's adaptable, it's flexible, it'll change.
It's a living money, right? Bitcoin too, the difficulty adjustment itself. The harder we try to mine Bitcoin, it actually adapts, it responds to human action and becomes more difficult to produce over time. That is the game, it's the first money that's responsive to human action. So when we saw Facebook disrupt MySpace, they did that by introducing a superior value prop to just the user. Facebook and MySpace is a one-sided network effect. If you look at something like Craigslist, this is a two-sided market. They have buyers and sellers in the marketplace. So they are more protected from disruption, because to disrupt Craigslist, you need to introduce a better value prop for buyers and sellers simultaneously. Otherwise, nobody moves, right? And you can see this in Craigslist. It doesn't have a lot of innovation, but because of its early lead, it's still a fairly well-established network. If you look at Bitcoin through that lens, Bitcoin has a four-sided network effect. We have buyers of Bitcoin, we have sellers of Bitcoin, we have the miners, and then we have all the entrepreneurs building on top of and around it. So if you're going to try and disrupt this network, you have to introduce a superior value proposition that Bitcoin can somehow not absorb. Again, it's open source software, it can absorb features that are useful. And you have to convince this entire global network that's four-sided to move simultaneously. And the whole thing is centered on a $1 trillion asset now. Typically when these networks get above 100 billion, they become dominant. So Amazon, two-sided market, once it got above 100 billion in market cap, it became dominant. We're well past that with Bitcoin, and I don't think there's any disrupting it at this point.
Well, being an old guy, I just look at Amazon. Could they have absorbed Pets.com? Yeah, they could sell pet. They could sell anything they wanted to sell.
Yeah, they do now.
Adapt. Is that what you're saying Bitcoin is? No matter what somebody throws at it, it'll come up. If it's better, it'll adapt it anyway.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. But you can't change the rules. You can only, it's an asymmetry in the governance mechanics that it can only absorb useful features, but it resists harmful changes. No one can go make more than 21 million Bitcoin, right? You can't make that change, but you can make some positive change.
So going back, I think the final thing that I would say is, the number one rule of investing, the number one most basic rule of investing, no matter what you're buying, is buy low and sell high, right? I mean, that's just common sense. Yet, when things are going bad, no one wants to touch it. It's when the market's way up here, that's when they want to jump in. It's just like real estate, the stock market. Now it's Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's way up here. Oh, I got to get in. I'm missing out on the opportunity. Instead, people need to be doing just the exact opposite. And the reason they're doing that, it's fear and greed. And when you boil those two things down, you're talking about human emotion. And human emotion, in my opinion, has been the greatest destroyer of wealth over time. And that's why people get so hung up and make so many bad decisions with their money.